6 o'clock, everybody. I'm calling the meeting to order. I was asked to chair the meeting this evening. So, I hope we don't have any booze or anything. I'm sorry. And
That's later.
but I think this should be a very interesting and productive session. I want to thank the select board for making the time for this joint meeting, as well as the finance committee. And basically, we have primarily 4 items that we're going to discuss this evening. The first, the capital needs of the police department, and we have Chief Fennelly here. We will also have the capital needs of the fire department, and Vinny, I see him on the screen remotely. And the third item is the highway department capital needs. And the last item on the agenda will be a discussion as to utilization of the OPEB fund to pay claims. So that's where we're at right now. And to the best of my knowledge, I'm going to introduce Chief Fennelly, who is going to discuss several capital items, code responders and radios. So, Chief, you're on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Before we go, excuse me,
Sure.
the pages in the budget, in this material,
Here, let me have it. I'll find it for you.
where are we going to find this stuff?
Keep turning up.
It's right here. This is it.
Which one?
That's it.
Pages? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay? All right, Chief Fennelly, please.
So I guess I'll start with the radios. So I've put in for the quoted price to replace the radios for our department. It's $53,363.42 was the quote that I submitted. So there'll be no purchase of a police cruiser in FY '25. The expenditure for the new patrol equipment line will be for the replacement and upgrade of our portable and cruiser radio systems. This is a one-time expense, $53,362. To the best of my knowledge, our 14 current portable radios are well over 10 years old. They were purchased when Chief Wilcox was still the chief. We have historically experienced gaps in coverage. Purchasing radios with upgraded technology, higher wattage, and adding 4 repeaters to the patrol cruisers will be able to eliminate the current gaps in coverage. The gaps that we really experienced, well, back, I guess, when Chief Eaton was here, so that would have been 2015. They did put a repeater up in our utility closet outside of our locker room, and that improved it quite a bit. But we still experience gaps on the north end of town in Glendale, Furnace District area, which could be very dangerous, if we have an officer out there and he can't get a hold of somebody over the radio. The radios are expensive. So the state is, to kind of make a long story short, the state is in the process of moving to what they call an 800 frequency radio. However, they're not there yet. They keep saying a year, it'll be a year, and that's been going on now for about 5 years or so. Those radios are about $10,000 a piece, if not more, depending on what brand you buy and what options you get. So in speaking with people I know who are in the know about the state 911 conversion plan, we're looking at several more years before they get to where they want to be, or even begin to get to where they want to be. So what I did is I went and got a quote for the regular radios that we use now, the VHF radios. So these, let's see, are, well, we get a contract price of $1,818.96 a piece. for 14 of those. And then as you go through the quote, there's all different kinds of expenses that go with those, batteries, the charger, things like that. We also get into the repeaters. So we're going to do repeaters on 4 of the cars that are used for patrol, and we won't do one in the chief's cruiser. That's not used for patrol, only in emergency situations. So that's how we arrive at the 53,000. It seems like a big number for radios. People don't realize how expensive these things are. However, if you looked at West Stockbridge, they did the conversion to the 800 system last year. And I think for about half of what we were ordering, they were at about $120,000, $130,000 for their conversion. I'm not quite sure who they're using them with because nobody's on that system. I think a few fire departments might be on the 800 and the state police are on the 800. So I guess at this point, I don't see the value in going that route. My thought process is when the state finally does their conversion and they're going to mandate everybody to be 800, there's probably going to be grant money or they're going to help you pay for this stuff. So
Here's a quick question for you, Chief. We're talking about 14, replacement of 14 radios.
yeah,
Is it all or nothing? We can't mix or match. In other words, some of those 14 are newer than others. They're not all compatible unless we clean out the entire system. Is that a correct statement
all
or?
14 of those are the same year and same model. So they were all replaced
same.
back in, well, Rick's last year was 2014, so probably around 2012, 2011, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah. So they're all past their useful life expectancy, I guess is
Okay.
maybe how you say it.
Got it.
Yeah, can the repeater, it seems like 2/3 of the budget is outside the actual radios or so. Can the repeaters be used in the new system in the future or will all that become, obsolete once? I mean,
No, I think the repeaters can,
will they handle the 800,
yes, I believe that they would.
gigawatts
The
or
repeaters
megawatts?
are the lesser of the expense to this request, only because there's just 4 of them.
Right, but you said it was $1,400 a radio?
The radios are, yeah,
In the 4 patrol cars.
1,800,
1,800. So 14 of those is what, 25 grand or so?
25 and a half, yeah.
Okay, and so the other half of that part of it, is that gonna be, the point I'm making is the rest of that, can we use that with the future systems or?
The repeaters. I
Yeah.
believe So the radios that we're going to purchase are not convertible.
Yeah, but what about the rest of the system?
The repeaters, I believe, will be.
And are there any radios that support both 400 and 800 bandwidth?
There are. But now you're looking at about probably a little more than double the price to have.
But it could last 10 or 20 years rather than 3 to 5 years.
Well, the life expectancy of these, I think, is around 10 years.
Yeah.
Anything over that, you're
I mean, the question I'm asking is, should we just bite the bullet and get you the 400 and 800 so that you can, do it, they lasted 12 years.
Yeah.
But they last another 12 years that way.
I see what you're saying. And the radio guys from Pittsfield Communications, we talked about that a little bit. And we both kind of agreed that when the state decides they're going to push this onto us, because they're going to mandate it. And once they mandate something, they will usually follow that with money
So how much?
upgrade.
Like 50% typically, 25%, 100%, when they do these kind of things, I know it's a guess and it's
I don't know. I can't tell you what the state's going to do.
All right, so it goes back to like, are we better off doing it just, just foregoing that potential future grant so that we don't have to obsolete all these new ones and just spend the extra money to get you the state of the art that does both. Basically offering you more money.
Yeah. Well, I guess as technology goes and kind of what we talked about with the radio guys was the technology moves so fast that these things update themselves fairly quickly. So even if we did buy the convertible ones, by the time are at the point to convert them, these will be outdated. You know what I mean?
And what we're hearing is the mandate by the state is all or nothing. When they mandate a radio change, you have to replace everything in the system.
Will be eventually, the state 911.
There's no
system
phase
goes
in
all the way over.
over a period of time.
Right,
Okay, Jay?
right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you.
I don't know about your experience, but when I hear about state mandates, I don't hear about money coming with the mandate. To assume that we're going to get money to pay for new radios is doubtful. And so it raises the question of, do we do it now and bite the bullet, or are we forced to do it later without any funding? I know we're not getting funding from the state for these either, but I don't think we should bet on being funded for new radios, even though they are mandated by the state, and the state should help us. But we know of examples where the state has mandated things and doesn't step up.
Right.
It's up to us.
Michael?
Chief, but this is, I should ask this before, but this is the 911 system. We would be able to swap these radios down from, say, highway, water and sewer and still use them.
Yeah.
They wouldn't become obsolete. They would just become obsolete on the 911 system.
Yeah, they could be
So
used
that's
elsewhere in town.
where- But it could be used for other areas.
For highway, right? But I mean, if you'd like, I can go back and get quotes for both the conversion ones and the full 800. I can probably get that relatively quick.
I personally don't, is it a major undertaking to do that? Will it take a long time?
I don't think so. I can call the Pittsfield Communications tomorrow and ask if, unless he's on vacation or something, but he could probably put that together in a few days.
Michael, from my perspective, I think it might not be a bad idea. Any thoughts on behalf of the committee? What's the end game and what's the first step?
Yeah.
So we have something to,
Well, if we heard correctly, the West Stockbridge switched over to the 800 system. They have limited usability. Did I hear correctly? So there's only a few organizations that are using the 800.
Yes.
You're about to say,
So they would have full communications with the state police. The state police right now is on the 800 frequency. So they have the dual band radios. So they can use them for both VHS and 800 frequency. But the only people they're using the 800 with is the state police.
but they have full usability within their group.
Yep, just like we do with everybody else in the county.
But then they paid a multiple for fewer.
Correct.
What was that difference again?
That was $130,000 for the upgraded 800
Well, how many?
capabilities.
You said a half?
I'm sorry?
You said half of what you're asking for radios?
How many radios?
14.
Yeah, no, they don't only have, 8, 9.
So you're talking
Radios over there?
14, you're talking.
We're talking
200
Right,
or 1,000?
right. Oh, I don't know. I don't want to give you a
I'm
quote.
just saying, but if you're going by their
It's
numbers,
going to be, it'd be a lot.
they got
That was-
130 for 7, you're doubling it
That
basically.
was last year's number too. I don't know how much the stuff has gone up in a year, like everything else.
And Michael, if this radios did become obsolete because of the 800 mandate, could they be used elsewhere in the system? I mean, technically they can be, but functionally,
They can be used
Would it be
functionally for
appropriate?
highway, water, sewer.
you could make use of them.
We could make use of them elsewhere. They just wouldn't be usable for the 911 system.
Steve?
Do we know, Chief, that the radios, the 800 radios that are being sold today are the ones that the state will approve 3 years from now?
I don't know that.
Yeah,
I don't know that.
technology, like you said, it changes so much, they may have
There are
different.
different brands out there as well, Motorola being the best. There's Kenwood, there's some other lesser brands and I don't know, from what I understand, you're taking your chances using these. You get what you pay for, I guess. If you're buying Motorola, you're not expecting to have problems with them. They're better built, they're more durable.
The
Yeah, if you-
interoperable, radio system main, findings to go to the 800 was in 2018.
Hmm.
And nothing's been done to date.
6 years later.
So basically, the quote that you're proposing, you have already the quote to replace them as is, okay, what we have presently. And then you will also get a quote as to a prospective device that would be under the state mandate. In other words, the Motorola device. so to
Yes,
speak.
I would get a quote for Motorola
Right.
equipment with the dual band radios. So we could, we could use them now, and if we ended up switching over with the conversion, then we would have the 800 capabilities as well.
I think that makes sense to me. Patrick?
Just one last question. If the state's on the 800 already, how do you communicate with the state with the, like, with the older type of system?
The middleman. So
Meaning what?
we are communicating, our communications are going to our dispatch center. Our dispatch center is then
And
switching over to 800 and communicating to the state police.
so my question really is, if this being Stockbridge with 1 million visitors a year and high profile, attractions, is there a benefit to you having the dual system to have direct communication with the state police in any scenarios?
Oh, sure. I mean, it would be, make life a lot easier, for sure. Anytime you're trying to communicate with the state police, and we
Let's see
frequently
what the-
tangle with it.
Yeah.
And then the decision will be made from there.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on this?
That's
Okay.
all I have, but I can get that to you. I'll call tomorrow and get you a time frame as to when I can get that quote.
Okay, and anything else, chief?
Well, the co-responder program. So in past years it was funded by ARPA,
For the last 2 years.
the last 2 years. So let me pass these around here.
I have a figure that it's 42,000 a year.
Okay, you have a copy of that. Okay. Yeah, 42,831. And that's level funded. The first year that we had this, we didn't hire the co-responder until, when it was, but it was several months after the budget had come out. And so there was money left over. So there's still some money left that will cover the overage, I guess. We're level funding, our share is level funded because even though the cost for the co-responder went up for salary raise and the cost for benefits, but those are covered by the overage that we had when the program started. So the genesis for this program was due to the difficulties that we were having getting mental health services here in town, specifically when the police were called to emergency mental health situations. We had a gentleman who lived in town for a short time. He was a giant problem.
We got it.
He ran into, and we struggled for weeks to deal with him, and we tried so hard to get help from the Breen Center, and the best they could offer us was, "Oh, we'll give him a telephone call. We'll call him later," which I'm sure, I doubt he ever answered the phone, or maybe he didn't even have a phone. I'm not sure. At that point, Lee and Lennox both were experiencing the same problems. They just didn't have enough people at the Breen Center to help everybody. The mental health problems since COVID has just exploded everywhere. So we thought, and Lee, it was really Lee's idea to start, Chief DeSantis. But at the time, he had a lot of marijuana money that he could use to pay for this. And at the time, we had some ARPA money coming. So we decided to start this with the understanding that we could hopefully fund it with grant funding. When we hired the co-responder, part of her job description was that she would, in her downtime when she's not servicing clients, that she would apply for the grants. Unfortunately, she'd never done grants before, so she was working with Jim Walou's Tri-Town Health. That's where she's based out of, which is the Tri-Town Health building. So he's been helping her along. He's been helping us with this program since the start. So they've been working on it. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened in the timely manner that we had hoped, because there's a lot to it. And speaking with Department of Public Health officials about the grant, they kind of want to move it away from the health department, the Tri-Town Health, and make it exclusive to the police departments. I'm not quite sure why. That seems counterproductive. It seems if you had it with the health department and the police departments, it would serve a broader range of people. But in order to fit the parameters of that grant, it has to be within the police department. So that's what we're dealing with right now. They're looking for statistics. Unfortunately, our records management program, depending on how it's put in to the system, how the call goes in, usually it's a well-being check is what it will be under, or mental health issues. There's not one specific for the co-responder. So we're having trouble pulling statistics just for her activity.
Do you know how often she's been used by the three departments?
A lot. I mean, we use her quite a bit. I mean, we've used her for domestic violence calls, where she'll come and speak to the victims after, and we use her for substance abuse problems. It's not just for people with mental health issues. It's all kinds of different issues. It doesn't necessarily have to be mental health, but just mental well-being,
So this is going to be a yearly thing.
We're hoping not. We're hoping it will be able to get it covered by the grant, but we still have to get our application in and apply. And we're a good ways into it right now. We're hoping to be able to submit, we have our goal was May 1st to submit it. But we're going to have a meeting, let's see. So we're having a meeting with the Department of Mental Health officials, grant officials on April 24th. So we're probably not going to make that May 1st deadline if we're not going to meet with them until the 24th. But they'll review what we have at that point and tell us what else they need from us.
My question leading isn't towards yes or no. It's a question of this. Should this be in the operational budget if it's going to be?
I think depending on what happens, as Chief said, it's switched from the Department of Public Health to the Executive Office. The grant, where it was offered. Speaking to the other town administrators, we talked about funding it for one more year, trying to get it into the grant program. And then for next year, making a decision on where we'd end up putting it long term. So I think for this year, we think, we're looking for an appropriation. Even the other towns are doing a one-time appropriation for one more year to figure out exactly what we're doing. So.
Well, would the grant be a yearly grant or would it be just for?
Yes.
It is. It's a
multi-year grant.
It's a 1 year, yeah.
It's a 1 year grant?
Yeah.
No, I thought it was a multi-year grant.
No,
No?
you have to apply for it every year.
Every
year, which makes it tough because depending on their timeline, does it make it before our timeline? That's the challenge with having this grant be yearly, but.
I mean, obviously, if the grant was awarded, you would not need an allocation of funds.
Correct. Right.
Well,
That's the
Well, you
goal.
might still need some if it doesn't cover the whole.
Yeah.
Not cover the whole, and we're probably not going to know well until after town meeting,
Right.
as to whether or not in this round.
Is 42.8 just our share?
That's our share. Yes.
That's benefits, pay, equipment, all in on that position.
Bill?
So is this a full-time job?
It is. Yes,
And it's one person?
that's correct. And she's on call as well.
She's on call. Have we ever had an issue where we've needed her and not gotten her?
Not yet. Not yet, but that could happen.
Yeah.
It could very well if she's on vacation, because she gets vacation and
Does she have a backup?
we don't have a backup.
So in that situation, we beg the Green Center to do
We
something?
would be back to begging the Marine Center and whether they would be able to help us.
Right.
You know, ideally, in these situations, like I say, since COVID, I don't know how to say it really. People don't like us. So,
We like you.
and especially with mental health calls, they don't really want to see us. We are trained to deal with it, but not to the extent the co-responder is or the people from the Breen Center. So even if we couldn't get somebody from the Breen Center, we can deal with it.
But it's not,
Not as well as a trained co-responder.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel it's so important to have that program. We also did talk with Jim Willows from Tri-Town Health. And like I say, it's on track to be moved away from him so much and to be put all into the police departments, to the program, where she would move when Lee builds their new public safety building, if that passes at their town meeting, there's space for her to have her own office there. But we've also kind of kicked around the idea of opening up the program a little bit more to other towns and maybe defer some of the costs that way. But then also we're talking about expanding the program to have more co-responders in it. Where it would be really like a true South County effort.
I wouldn't expand it unless you get more help.
Do you think you'll have, I'm sorry,
I'm saying just
Do you
put her
think-
farther out, more calls.
Yeah,
do you think you'll have a final response by that May date that you mentioned, grant response?
no,
You will not,
because we're not meeting with the grant people until the 24th
of April,
of April.
right, and then.
But we'll have a
submission.
better idea of where we are and
Right.
what they need, what else they need from us. So we're hoping to have that meeting and then we were hoping to submit by May 1st, which we won't now. So hopefully June 1st, we could submit by.
I see, so it'd be after the town meeting, that we would
Yeah.
get a response. Ed?
I'm not certain why this is a capital expenditure. If this is an annual expenditure that
That's
we're
what-
going to be looking at.
Saying they gotta go for grants every year and get it, don't get it. One year they may get it, next year they may not get it.
It's not capital, it's a one-time expense, so we're.
No, it's not, it's a yearly expense.
But
It's a yearly expense, yeah, but he's saying we may get grants in the future, so we're not putting it as a line item in the budget.
because it's got a grant.
We're not sure how we
potential every
fund
year,
in the future.
Because it has a grant potential every year.
But there's a good opportunity that if you're in this one, very similar to some other programs been involved in, you typically re-up for them. And as long as you're meeting the minimum call volume, you will typically continue in those programs as long as the program's funded. So the idea is as soon as we have a good idea of what the annual costs are that the grant would cover and then we can build into the budget that. But we have funded the first. Basically, this is funding to get the program off the ground.
I see.
And then by next year, we'll know whether or not this is going to be or not going to be, because there is still some concern that our volume
Right.
of calls is not going to be sufficient enough to justify in the program, which then we have to make a call of whether this is a program the three towns want to continue. So there's still a bunch of discussion that's going to happen over the next year.
Got it.
Jim?
Well, that was my question that I wanted to ask is, how many years has this program been going now?
2.5.
2.5. And how many calls a year have the calls increased? What's the number of calls approximately?
No, well, lately I would say we've decreased. It's been slow these last 6 months or so, which is a good thing, right? Bad for her, but
You think
yeah, and I
some of
could
that's a
also for
result
Lee and
of-
Lennox as well. They've slowed down, but when we started this program, it was gangbusters. We were dealing with mental health issues a few times a week.
And that
anyway.
was happening during the COVID.
COVID and right after. Yeah, it's slowed since, as we proceed out of that, it is slowed. And again, that with COVID, these co-responder programs, especially with the Department of Mental Health, they were really pushing these programs. They were begging people to apply for the grants to get in on this and start these programs. As we get further away from COVID and maybe mental health is trending downward, I don't know if they're going to be pushing it as much. It was the cool thing to do at the time was to push co-responder programs for the police.
Well, wasn't
You know.
part of the reason for that, the anti-police sentiment, that they were really wanting somebody other than a policeman to show up?
Well, I think that was some of it. Absolutely.
I remember
I,
that.
I think the key thing here is that we can't be without such a program. Even if the call volume has gone down, there's still an issue here.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
And it does. It's, as with in everything in law enforcement, it kind of ebbs and flows. It's, one week you're straight out and you'll have 5 mental health calls and next week you won't have any, it's.
I'm not sure there's anything else that we could do at this point until we get some more feedback from the chief.
I don't think
gotta fund it.
much more for this year. I think basically we're asking for one more year
Yep,
of this as basically a pilot program for the last 3 years.
Right.
And then for next year's budget will be in consideration. If it becomes an annual thing, then it will go into the police budget instead of being a separate article outside of it. Or it could end up fizzling. There's a bunch of things. So, but we are asking for one more year of funding from all 3 communities to continue this for one more year, evaluate it, and then come back to the various towns to see if we continue this program.
It is certainly a work in progress because this program is so unique throughout the state. We're one of the only ones that have tried to run this through our health department, our shared health department. Every other co-responder in the state, Pittsfield being the big one around here, runs theirs right through the police department. That's kind of where the health department is pushing us towards that. And I think that's what we're going to have to be in order to qualify for that grant. But, we're kind of blazing a trail here on this with what we're doing currently. So,
yes, Patrick.
Is Lennox and Lee, have they indicated they're going to support this?
yes.
Okay, so I think this is, we'd be blowing it up in effect if we pulled out. So I think it's important that we do it another year.
Yeah, we have to do it.
See how it goes.
Okay, anything else on this, folks? Okay, anything else, chief? I think that's it.
Great.
We thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
Election year, maybe we can get the call volume up.
Do we want to take a bite on
I'll
that?
tell you,
Okay.
we haven't had any election related. The closer we get.
We got lots of time.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Vinny, can you hear us okay?
Good evening,
Okay,
how are you?
thank you. And I think you're on to talk about the SCBA bottles and the firefighting nozzles, hose nozzles, and the positive pressure vent fans. So, yes, sir.
So capital item number 1 is the SCBA bottles. Basically, they expire every 15 years, meaning they're unserviceable and unusable at that time. We have 12 bottles that are reaching that age out limit as of September. So if we pass this item in July, I can order them and have them in service for when they expire in September.
What is an SCBA bottle?
So,
Breathing apparatus.
Oh, it's the thing they wear on their backs?
Yes.
correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. I would refer to that as a bottle. I drink from a bottle. I don't breathe through a bottle.
So the, similar to a scuba setup, the cylinder that's on the back of the self-contained breathing apparatus or SCBA pack that you see firefighters wearing inside of smoke-filled buildings, it's the cylinder that goes into the pack itself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any questions on that? Go ahead, Vinny.
Okay, if there's no questions on capital item number one, we'll move to capital item number two, which is the hose nozzles. The current hose nozzles that we have that we're replacing are greater than 20 years old. Recommendations for useful life are 10 years or under. They've served their purpose for us to date, but technology has changed drastically. The new nozzles that we're looking to use will give us another 10 years plus in service. It'll be lower operating pressures, which means when we pump the trucks, we can pump them at a lower pressure, which means less fatigue on the firefighters on the end of the hose and still delivering the same volume of water with less pressure on the trucks, less fuel consumption for the trucks, and less fatigue on the members.
And with this item, Jay, one thing me and Chief Garofoli talked about is next year, the EMS Fire Committee is going to be making some recommendations about the overall equipment, a 10-year plan, what we're doing for ambulance, everything else. So there is some consideration that can be given of pushing this one off to become part of that for the following year. So it's just something to consider that this could be one that could be pushed off as part of that large scale improvement that we're going
What's your recommendation, though?
across the board.
Well, I think that's something that you have to get a sense from the chief,
Yeah, we spoke
yeah.
about that this afternoon. And
Yeah, the conversation that Administrator Canales and myself had indicated that instead of doing it one piece at a time, this is replacing all of engine 2, which is our frontline responding piece. Instead of doing it one piece at a time, we'd be looking at our remaining fleet and replacing them all in one on that 10-year plan. So that way, when we do so, we have that plan moving forward for replacement down the road.
What's your preference, though?
Anything else on this one?
Did you hear that question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, what's your preference?
My preference is if it was something that could be supported in a revolving addressed item moving forward, like next year when we look at our capital plan and our equipment replacement plan, if it can be added in there and not pushed off several more years, I would support moving it to next year.
Okay, I think that's a fair statement. So consider in 2026 fiscal year.
Correct. The next line item is similar in nature to being potentially moved, but the next item is for the positive pressure fans, and these are battery operated positive pressure fans. We do have some electric ones, but the main fan that we use on engine 2 is gas operated. So there is some drawbacks to using gas, such as when we're putting the fans into use inside of a building on, say, a simple burnt food, we're actually putting products of combustion into the house trying to exhaust the gas. So we're trying to replace the gas operated fan and several of the electric ones that are 20 plus years old with these battery operated ones so they can be self-sustaining and not produce carbon monoxide to be pushed into a house trying to push smoke out.
so what me and Chief talked about this afternoon was we took a look at his operating budget right now. And his operating budget, knock on wood, is in very good shape right now. And it looks as though we could get at least 2 of these fans out of the operational budget this year instead of having to do it through the capital budget. So, Chief is still sitting on 16,000 in his purchase and replacement of equipment. I know there's some things he wants out of there. Chief, 3,800 was it per fan?
Yes.
It's so the quote is for, yes, 3,800 per fan. And that includes the charger as well as the fan.
So right now, we believe that we'll be able to purchase at least 2, possibly 3, but right now we think we'd be able to purchase 2 right out of the operational budget. And so we think that once again, this one could be a 2-year plan where we can try to squeeze these out of the operational budget at the end of this year. And then if need be, come back for the remaining for next year.
Anybody have any concerns with that? Makes sense.
Let's do that.
Makes sense, 'cause- okay.
And I totally agree with that.
No, I think that's good because, we got to do our replacement plan for the next 5, 6 years and
Right.
where we're moving with the fire department, what we're gonna have for equipment at the time. There's no sense of putting new nozzles and new fans in a truck that we may not have in 2 years.
So we stagger it.
So stagger it.
Yeah.
We know where the department's heading without
Yeah.
throwing money
And
away.
the radio issue that came up earlier in the previous budget before me is also one that's going to be part of that plan moving forward next year from the fire department side. So
Yeah,
it
that's
is
what I asked.
happening,
That's gonna affect the fire department as well.
correct. The
800.
the 800 proposal has police transitioning before fire, but it's still going to be within the same operational period.
Okay, any other questions for Chief Garofoli? Michael, okay. Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Have a great
Okay.
night.
Thank you very much. You want Mr. Page up here?
Highway Department.
You can join us now, Hugh. We have a number of items that have on a preliminary basis been proposed. The John Deere 3046, I guess that's a mower type device. Is that what that is?
That replaces the John Deere 3720 we have. It's the green tractor, the little tractor you see on sidewalks or blowing roadsides or roadside mowing, doing a short shoulder. The new tractor is the same footprint, it's the same machine, it's just a different series number. So we're not going bigger, we're not going smaller. I want to stay the same footprint because it fills that niche pretty good. So it's just that replaces that machine, so.
And how old is the machine?
Geez, the date on it, I know it's got 4,800 hours on it, 4,900 hours.
Tough hours,
Huh?
tough hours.
Tough miles, yeah.
I can look up that sheet. Just give me a moment.
Yeah.
Continue on the rest, and I'll call it up.
And I apologize.
It needs it. It's not a,
Right.
and that's 65, that's the tractor with attachments, or is that just a tractor?
Roll mower and front end loader. I'd like to put a drop spreader like we did with the little Bobcat electric. I think it controls the spread and the salt displacement on the sidewalks a little better than that seed broadcaster, and that kind of leaves. So that's something we'll do after the purchase,
Well, that's a good price.
but it's pretty much replacing what we have. It's not bringing anything else in, so.
Okay.
You buy these used?
Oh, I'm sure. we
Yeah,
could.
they're
$65,000. Expensive.
Okay, let's take the large truck.
Mhm. Okay, that's an International 4700 series. That's our truck that we use for one of our main northern routes, the 183 route, the bigger route up north for winter snow plowing. And it's also the truck that we move the excavator and bigger equipment around with. It's the only big truck we have that's a CDL required vehicle. That one, a year and a half ago, I had it sandblasted and painted and we put some money into it. And it's showing through again, you know what I mean? It's just starting to really show through again. The body's actually coming apart. All our new snow fighters we bought with stainless steel, all season bodies. This one's a mild steel that's on that machine, so, in its environment, it's just, it rots.
How much was the refurbishment a year and a half ago, approximately?
Geez, I put, $4,000 into it, sandblasting and painting and, giving it a decent service,
What was that, about $10,000?
No, about 4,000.
4,000?
Yep, I'm sorry.
I think one would ask the question, maybe it's an unfair question, is can we get a little more use out of this if we refurbish it for another year or two?
Absolutely. I've got a 67 Fairlane I bought and redid it. I can get in that and drive it to California, so anything is possible. One thing I can say, that I've worked for employers that wanted to extend the life of everything. And the last person that I worked for almost 30 years was of the mindset we don't work on our equipment, we work on the job. So I carried that mindset into this job where, you know, when I walk in the shop and everything is parade ready, that's pride to me. We're not working on our equipment, you know, so I'm just throwing that out there. But if we want to look at repairing that body, I can find a used body. I wouldn't spend an awful lot of money in it, you know, because who knows what could happen mechanically with it? There's no warranty on it. Everything we brought in for previous trucks have 7-year extended warranties, so we vested that way to cover ourselves. So I guess without rambling more about it, yeah, I mean, that's fine. That's the decision of the employers.
And basically, were we to move in the direction of refurbishing this large truck, the replacement would have to go on a multi-year capital budget at some point, you know, whenever we feel it needs to be replaced. Jim?
Yeah, how old is this truck that you're using now that you refurbished?
The big one that we're using now, that's a 13?
Yeah.
So I did, the John Deere tractor, just so everybody's aware, is 12 years old, first one.
My next question is, if you're using that to plow in the winter time, and you're that far along with what the age of that is, what happens if that goes down in the middle of winter?
Well, we've had that scenario with other trucks. We've been out with 2 pickups plowing our road, you know?
Yeah.
So we work together and we get through it, and guys piggyback on each other's, and we almost have this 3, 2, or roof system going, so we can cover, you know, is it efficient? Depends on the situation and the storm. You know, so if it goes down, the biggest thing we lose is the ability to move our equipment, and haul, you know, larger.
Yeah,
you
you're
know.
shut down from that aspect.
Well, if you look at it that aspect, if it's the only truck that's CDL, if you lose that, 100% of your CDL fleet is down.
So the select board recommended those 2 and put the other 2 on for the future.
Pardon?
The select board already voted to recommend the John Deere tractor and the large truck and to defer the other 2.
So in other words, he'd refurbish.
We already decided that.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's up to you guys to go along with it.
Well, and I think also the point, you know, just to keep back here, we're not really sure as to what is going to be the optimal type of vehicle in the future for a large truck like this. All electric, hybrid, still gasoline. I mean, that's really up in the air, no matter what the government is telling us. You know, they're already extending the electric vehicle mandate out several years. But it's an issue, we don't know what we're going to replace it with.
This large truck,
Right.
with the pushing capacity that's required, is never going to be electric.
Well, it could be a hybrid though. Okay.
I'm a vegetable oil. What do you think?
All right, end the case.
Wouldn't it be a hybrid?
I will say one thing that the highway department's done an excellent job on is now with their new equipment, they have great records on their maintenance records and the rest. Some of our older equipment, as Hugh pointed correctly out, we don't necessarily have some of those older records. So even though this vehicle, this is the Workstar, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a 2014, but it has 8 rough years on it. And without that stainless steel bed, there's
Right.
been a lot of.
And we do get the extended warranty on them, so
Right, I mean,
that covers.
I know some of you have seen, I call it the Book of Woe, my big 3-ring binder, the red one, and it shows if I go buy a light bulb or something, I copy it and it goes in there under that thing. So I should have bought it tonight. I had it the other night. I apologize. But we're already over on our maintenance line, and that is a result of the older equipment. But we're out working too, you know what I mean? We're out hustling. So, that being said, you know, we might not have another breakdown for 5 years with anything, you know, or we could buy a brand new truck and have issues. So it's a roll of the dice.
Yes, Ed.
Is there, if we get the new truck, is there any residual value or use of the old truck?
It depends on
When?
if you want to say 20 grand, 30 grand into the new truck, look at the value of the trade in 5 years is less than it is now. You know what I'm saying? So you got to weigh that. You know, or is the greater value in the 30 grand, hoping to push it out 5, 6 years? You know, that's a question for the employer. So that's you guys. You know.
Yeah, no, I guess what I'm asking is if it's 270,000 for a new truck, does that reflect a trade-in value or residual use value of the existing truck?
A trade-in value will come off of that. It depends, that figure I gave you, is for a international and, or the Peterbilt. I'm talking to either one and seeing what kind of better warranties and how soon I can get it. The international is a year out. Peterbilt says I'll see the truck, cab and chassis in June, July. Should push snow with it this fall. You know, Workstar is 340,000, so I just threw them out. I'm not that greedy. So, but they are nice trucks. I mean, you see our trucks get on the road, you know, they're clean, they're attractive, they're good looking, they're good work vehicles, you know, and I'm trying to carry that same theme no matter what, you know, so.
And there's 270s with the body.
Yes.
The plow.
Yes, with the plow, all season stainless with a barn door, with a barn door. I mean, you understand.
Yeah.
I think the point was made that this is going to be refurbished at this point.
No.
Oh, I thought that's what you.
No, we did the other way.
We decided, the select board voted on to approve
I'm
the
sorry.
tractor and the large truck and the
I'm
roadside
sorry, I
mowing
misunderstood.
1-ton dump truck that pushed off into
Got it. Okay,
the 5 to 10 year plan.
Right.
The 1 ton is to replace the
sorry about that.
2018 F-250
Yeah.
green one.
Next year.
Right, and that's got about 88,000 on it right now, so we're looking to replace that one. It's a little heavier, that's all. And then the roadside mower, if I don't get that this year, I'm not upset because that gives me another year with what we got to beat back the brush a little better, you know what I'm saying, so.
I have one question.
Go ahead, Diane.
The new truck that you're referring to, what is the life on that? For how many years? At 270 or whatever?
It depends who's in the seat. I guarantee you that, because if it leaves my barn, don't go back to my barn, let's walk. My guys shower at the end of the day, my equipment gets a shower at the end of the day. Rainy days, at the end of the day, you got time, you're greasing, you're cleaning, you're washing under the hood, so to answer your question, hopefully an awful long time.
It's,
What was the capital plan on that, Mike? What we said?
12, 15 years.
you get a good 15.
Okay.
Taking care of the truck, you get a good 15 years out of it plus.
I mean, I can't promise we won't have problems with it.
Well, any new vehicle you have a problem with it.
You know, we could keep what we got, we can refurbish that, that's.
No, we're not refurbishing. We're not
That's
just,
where we get into the whole problem with, you know, you having the staff maintaining the stuff versus doing the work. Yeah, that's what we're trying to get away from.
And also, we're looking at the best way to get our money back for the town on some of this equipment. Rather than trading it in, it might be, we're looking at other avenues to get back money back into the general fund. So, I don't want to leave too much meat on the bone, trying to keep some money back, so.
Jim,
I just have a question on the 1-ton truck that you're delaying and even the roadside mower. If they're talking about delaying next year or whatever, with the prices going the way they are we really going to save anything? Because prices are not going down on this stuff, they're exploding. And you put this off for a year, and anyone in here who wants to go trade their vehicle in, good luck. And so I think, I think we're being a little short-sighted on those two issues, on those two vehicles. That's just my opinion. I know it's gonna cost us money, but it's gonna cost us a lot more money next year, a lot more money.
I think that's a very valid point.
The 1 ton, just to cap you on that, is just gonna be a dually with a head plow. And it'll have a flatbed on it. I don't want to dump on it. I want a lower surface to work off of. It's my mobile workstation. We'll throw the sander in it. That'll be our small impact truck. The roadside mower, the one we have now has a drop flail and the rotary mowers off the back, off the 3-point hitch. The new one, the rotary mower will be on a side mount. We'll leave the 3-point hitch open and that'll hold an 8-foot brush hog that we've gotten, so. So that's the mindset, and that will also come with a Buffalo blower, which is a big, blower that goes on the back of the 3-point head. So as you're mowing the roadsides, you can blow it off and just continue, you know? So that's the mindset on that one. And that one, if we order it, it's gonna be a while before we see that.
One question. If you order this, how long will it take until you get it?
The big truck, they're telling me, well, they said about a month ago or so, I could see it in June, so I could push it and probably, know that this upcoming season with the big truck. The 1-ton pickup, I could probably pull one of them pretty quick, you know, I could probably, find one of them without too much problem right now, we'll just see what's gonna happen. The roadside mower, I gotta wait to get that. That'll be a John Deere 5M series. So they gotta pull the tractor through the fleet program and then put the Elmo side mower on it once they order that. And then, so that, it'll be, I don't think we'd see it this fall. It'd probably be in the next year before we see the roadside mower. And the John Deere tractor, I don't think there'll be an issue of getting one of them fairly quick.
Which you have in stock.
Right, I mean, there's nothing generic there. It's pretty,
That's pretty quick. Yeah.
I think so,
Gotta go over and chat and pick it up tomorrow.
Yeah, well, we gotta go through Sourcewell. We gotta.
I know you gotta go through.
Well, yeah, but they can pull it from different,
Yeah.
right, they can do what they gotta do on their end.
I mean, I got no issue doing them all, but it's just,
I sat here and I feel humbled after listening to the requests of the fire and the police department. And let me say, with what the town has given the highway, I'm more than appreciative. So for me to ask for more, I kind of.
but you're doing your job.
It's not charity here.
What do you need to
Yeah, right.
do that? That's our.
Doing the job, the town looks great.
Absolutely.
You need the equipment to do
I
it.
mean,
Your
We've gone without.
department's really picking up, your staffing is a lot better.
yeah,
So we're in the right direction. That's why you're being, well, honestly rewarded for it, but you're being given the equipment you need to do your job.
and I think, Mr. Canales can say that I've still got money in some of my ATMs from the previous purchases, so I don't go out and just throw it away, I'm kind of like, wait for that time to buy things and do things, so, but if we need it, I get it.
Well, deservedly so. I think that's what the.
Do we have a resolution on
Select board
the
have
new?
any issue of
Say it again?
going off for?
No, I don't care. I mean, I think, plus we got, it's just how do we pay for it?
Do we have
Do we
enough?
want to do we want to come out of, why, I don't see why we borrow with
We're not-
rates
I
are
wouldn't borrow.
going down. I think we should use
No
free cash or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we were to add those back in, with the two that were coming out for fire, we'd still have a free cash balance of 253,000. We'd be spending 1.4, the 1.69. One thing I will say that this is a year that you can, because it's not as dangerous to bring free cash low this year because we know we are gonna have a miscellaneous receipt from the rest of the river settlement of 1.711 million. That's gonna come in as a miscellaneous receipt and come through us as free cash for next year. So free cash next year is gonna be starting at that point, and whatever other returns we have from the town will end up. So I'm expecting that our free cash will bounce right back to over $2 million next year because of that.
But let's just also recognize though that next week is the water and sewer capital meeting. I think we should consider at least 500,000 into of that 1.7 million for what Don's needs are. I talked to him earlier today. And the other thing I would just point out is that with dredging, we got $1.5 million that the SBA raised. I could easily see us put another 500,000 of that money into dredging. So, that still leaves a fair amount, for that free cash.
I guess what?
Don Schneider, water and sewer. I just feel like, they're going to come back with a proposal on the capital investments for water and sewer. And
We already have that in under the water and sewer reserves, 450,000 moving into,
yeah, it's not really going to be enough though.
I guess you're aware of something I'm not aware of.
Well, I think the point being that you'll solidify these at next week's select board meeting.
Yep.
You know, and then ultimately following that meeting, we'll have our meeting to go through all of these things. So that's the thought, and more on that in a few minutes. But anything else for you, Paige?
One thing I do want to say is, just keep in mind, we got a lot of, infrastructure work too, so I just don't want to get too greedy. I want to have the ability to do culverts and head walls, and we got bridges to do, so I just want to keep
Well,
that.
let's deal with your situation. Don't worry about these other things. You've got to be able to get the job done. That's the key.
We will, no matter what you grant us. Like I said, these are requests, and we'll work with whatever you give us, so.
Exactly.
And what you've given us so far has been appreciated, so.
Thank you. We have no further questions for Hugh.
Well,
Right.
we'll do about the compactor. Are we going to talk about that?
Oh, you want to talk about that?
I mean,
The compactor?
25.
sure.
No, but what is it?
I mean, I'm just asking because Hugh's asking for a capital expense.
The paint.
Oh, the painting.
Painting.
Yeah, technically that falls under highway. Compactor's under highway. So, yeah, I mean, we're both recommending that building be painted. It'll add life and everything else to the existing structure.
Next time you're at the dump, just take a look at the beams at the bottom where they're ground contact and they're starting to scale and rust and starting to.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have it all hydroblasted and two-part epoxy painted, just the beams. And, we want to put up a new gutter and do some other little work with that. Christine and Mark, has been working on, the little pump shed, looking at some grant work money for putting a floor and doing some work inside of there. So, I don't want to slow down, keep the train rolling on that too, improvements on that. Although, we have the fence to put up, that's already been purchased. We got some, we want to paint the compactors. And then after that, it'll be just some kind of capital plan to look at our dumpsters. Like maybe we'll go after a dumpster in 2 years. It's just start rotating some of them out of here as well. So that's the mindset there, is to keep that thing moving, so. But there is light at the end of the tunnel there, so.
Okay. All right, Georgia?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Hugh.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Job well done. Thank you.
It's good of you guys, so appreciate it. Thank you.
The other issue we have is the issue of OPEB.
Yeah, so it was brought up at the, consideration to be given toward using our OPEB funds toward our Medicare and Medicaid payments. This year is $83,007 in payments that when they cover those health insurance costs. That is an allowable expense under the trust. But it is a question of, do we tap into the trust? Do we not tap into the trust? Do we allow the trust to build? What are our goals overall and the rest? So you have the actuarial report, the most recent one that was done.
What tab is that?
What's that?
What tab?
OPEB.
I know, I've seen it. Oh, ours just have numbers on it.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Different.
Oh, I got it, sorry, I got it, yeah.
Yeah, the OPEB tab. Like I said, that's really, it's really just at what point do you feel comfortable having this account to use toward parents and retiree benefits? So it's just a debate.
It's your baby.
Yeah, I'd like to go back a little bit in time, back to 2014, when Gene Rousseau first brought this up for a town meeting, and the select board eventually recommended to subsequent town meeting that we begin to fund it. One of the things that happened at that time, and as a result of the town taking action to fund the OPEB trust fund, was that Standard & Poor's increased our bond rating from AA to AA+. And that resulted in a decrease in our borrowing costs. So the first question I have about this is that has anyone taken into consideration is there any risk? Has there been any discussion with S&P about what the impact would be of beginning to invade the trust fund when the trust fund is not fully funded? That's number one. And I don't see anything here in the materials about that issue. So I personally would like to have an answer to that question. The other thing that we don't have in here, we have a fair amount of discussion about the discount rate. It's both in the actuarial discussion, as well as we had some discussion last night with the auditor about discount rate changes. We have no idea what interest rates are going to look like. There's no run rate that we have. There's no prediction about what this fund is going to have to do over the course of the next 5 years.
Can I
the
just
next
jump
10
in for
years.
just one second about the
Sure.
rates, Steve?
Yeah.
Actually, there is some expectation, who knows whether
Yeah.
it'll be realized, but some expectation that rates will be coming down in, say, the next couple of years. And if they do, the liabilities go up,
That's correct.
just to make sure that people understand
Yeah.
what the direction of the liabilities could be.
Right. And we see no predictions here. We've seen some figures about the increases in insurance costs.
Coming.
Well, not merely coming,
here.
they're here. They are here. And if you look at the increase, the only thing I'm saying is there's no financial model in these materials that gives us some idea as to what the impact is going to be. The $83,000 is minor. The real question is, do we fully fund? And we're not fully funded. We're somewhere in the low 80s now.
88%.
88%, excuse me, stand corrected. What are interest rates what will they do? What is the population, the increases in population that we anticipate? That is the population
That's the recipients.
the recipients. Thank you, Jay.
Right.
Increases in potential increases in insurance over a period of time. I mean, we worked hard to fund this.
It was, yeah.
And I would be very reluctant without very hard evidence that what we're doing here or proposing to do will not have a negative effect, one, on the fund, and two, on our bond rating. So,
When do we become 100% invested?
excuse me?
Can't tell. I mean,
20.
I thought there was 5 years or.
Is there,
The study that we have based on the assumptions they have in there is if we do pay as you go without taking any money out, is that we should be 100% funded by 2030.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Georgia.
So you're talking about the retirees that get Medicare. But there's some retirees that pay regular insurance. They don't get Medicare because they don't qualify. That number should be in there. So it could be up more than
You could do more
80,000.
than that. Right.
So that's what I'm just saying,
Board
that
started
they're
with just-
retirees.
We just started with, what would it take if we hit the Medicare and Medicaid? And that's the first number. We could look at all the retirees, and actually it's in the actual report. I believe it's 139,000 for everybody,
Right.
if you were to hit everybody. So, there's a couple options on how much you want to hit. Do you want to hit some? Do you not want to use it at this point? Those are all questions. Anything out of this trust will require a 2/3 vote in town meeting. It's in the IGR that's in your pamphlet of what's required.
I also didn't hear anything. Last night, we heard from the auditors that the auditors would revise footnotes as respects discount rates for OPEB, okay? And the thought also was raised whether or not, whatever the auditors propose, this should be run by our actuaries, okay? I would like to get
years though.
Or that they actually
Actuaries every
do
2
an
years.
updated report analysis for us before we make a decision on this.
I would agree with that, okay?
I'll just look at this group decision, I'm not going to argue it. I'm going to just make my point. I think this generation You guys did a fantastic job at funding this. But let's recognize that that's 3.8 million of taxpayer money that didn't, with earnings or whatever, that didn't go into funding other things. I think it's fantastic that this generation of taxpayers funded that. And if you're telling me that if we start pulling out 80 grand a year when we're earning 300,000 at least right now, and it takes us till 235 rather than 230 to get to fully funded, to reward these taxpayers who paid all this money in, I think it's about time that we take care of these taxpayers, and this will save the taxpayers about 1%, $80,000.
These
The
taxpayers.
ones who were, pull this 1% out, this 80,000 out,
Yeah.
and we reduce the raise and we reduce the property tax levy by effectively 1%. And the fact is that maybe that pushes us out to 233 or 234 or 35, but we've basically funded this over the last 10 years completely with you guys, with our properties. And I don't think it's unreasonable to say if we're going to take 15 years instead of 10 years, or from 2014 to 2035, 20 years instead of 15 years to get them fully funded, it's not unreasonable to start to pull down the tax rate to benefit, because a lot of the people who paid into that in the last 10 years were working and now they're retired. We're getting older here. And I want to reduce the tax rate on the folks who live in town right now who are retired.
But
Patrick, if I might, excuse me just one sec. I really totally respect your position, but I am not comfortable until we can articulate what the plan is in writing and that we get people who deal with this, be it Odyssey or be it the actuaries, to comment on this. I think we need more analytical evaluation of what we're trying to accomplish here. We're not saying yes or no, but what we're saying is let's get the plan, let's analyze the plan, and let's come up with, are there alternatives to this plan? i.e. we withdraw and then subsequently we fund more based on the discount rate. I'm not proposing anything, but there are alternatives.
Jay,
And I don't think we're ready to propose that now.
let me just suggest to you, Patrick, that the motivation for doing this in the first place,
Can't hear you.
the motivation for doing this in the first place was so as not to put a burden on people coming after us. We looked at this in some respects the way we were looking at infrastructure improvements. And we wanted to fund those liabilities. We didn't want the liabilities to carry on into future generations. That was the goal.
I get it.
Okay, and I think we're almost there, but we got a little bit longer to go. And what we don't know, we had an extraordinary year for yield in the stock market generally, the finance markets in 2023. But the year before
Wasn't great.
Was bad.
was a disaster.
It was bad.
Okay,
And the forecast ain't great.
well, I don't know about the forecast. I mean, it's never.
Can't,
I don't know. I don't know that, but I have, it would be very good before making a decision about this, to see a model as to if the rates were if we're only getting 2%, what does it do? If the population that we have to serve goes from X to X plus 10, what does that do? X plus 5. If it declines. See, and then you can make an informed judgment about whether or not to do this. I agree, the $83,000 is not a lot of money, but it becomes a precedent.
Once you start.
Once you start,
I think that what Steve is proposing, this really affects due diligence of the process. And it would give us all a comfort level as to what the end game is. I respect that comment.
And
I just respond to,
and as far as putting,
you're right.
as far as putting a burden on taxpayers tomorrow, we've reduced or eliminated, a significant burden on future taxpayers.
But let's,
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
And I consider that to be, part of our obligation as citizens of this town.
we've done a great job that most other towns in the Commonwealth haven't done. But let's recognize that the average sale price in town is around 700 grand. All right. The reality is if the people in this room, if you think about the folks you know who sold in the last couple of years, a lot of them were property rich and cash poor. And the fact is that the folks who are replacing those folks are a little bit less cash poor than the folks who are currently the owners. And I just think we should recognize the fact that this town has changed and it's continuing to change. And taking care of future generations is a little bit less important to me at this point than taking care of the seniors who are in this town now and who maybe 1 or 2% makes a difference on. And that's why all of us have worked so hard to keep the budget size down and to limit the exposure on taxes for the folks who live right now.
Jim, I'd like to, excuse me, Jim, I just want to finish this. What does the $83,000 represent? I mean, how does that help?
It's around 1%.
It's 1% of what?
Of what the average tax bill is. I mean, of everyone's tax bill.
Of everyone's tax bill.
What
We raise about 9 million in property taxes, so 80,000 is about 1%.
82,000, that's where that's coming from. That they want to take out 82,000 from the 3.9 million balance, whatever.
And I just didn't understand.
That moves it down from like 5 to 4 or whatever, so in terms of the amount that we have to raise the.
Well, we're just about to approve a $270,000 truck. What does that do to
Paying
people's
that a free cash.
tax bill?
No, we're doing that.
Let's let Jim make a
Well,
comment.
absolutely it is.
Money.
Just one sec, okay, Jim?
Well, I want to respond to Patrick in two ways. Number one, it isn't just Stockbridge that's changing. It's the entire country that's changing. That's point one. Point two, if you're looking to save these older citizens that live in their homes and their valuation of their home has gone up so much, why don't we consider reevaluating the Community Preservation Act? Because the vast majority of those funds go into nonprofits. And how many of the nonprofits are paying anything in lieu of taxes? So and I can see this coming down the road to Stockbridge, that there's a proposal for Stockbridge to do away with the CPC. Because if you take a $770,000 home and you take $100,000 off of it, and then you tax that at 3%, you're going to save that taxpayer a lot more money than you're going to save by borrowing $82,000 from OPED. And I'm against borrowing money from OPED. I'll say that. But I wanted to make that comment. I think it's a fair comment.
There's one thing, and I don't think we need to belabor this at this, we're not going to come up with a conclusion. The one thing I didn't hear is obviously we start to make withdrawals from the OPEB fund. That would have an effect on our bond rating.
I don't know that.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know that. We
Well,
don't know that.
We don't know that it won't.
We don't know if the sun's going to come up for sure.
But basically, I think from our perspective, I think the point that Steve made to enhance an evaluation of a proposed plan makes a lot of sense.
The only thing
We don't want to.
the only other thing I want to put on the table here is that we're talking about it as if it's got to be all or nothing. And
Well, that's what I said before.
We didn't do the whole 130 or 140 grand. We
There
only did
are
81.
different options to be explored here. We haven't done that.
It's off the table.
All right.
It's off.
But you get the report, like I said, we're not doing it. I'm okay with not doing it.
All right, can we just get under control just a little bit?
Off the
Okay.
table
All right, off the table for the time being.
until we get the
Okay.
information.
Wait a minute, who are we getting the information from? Who's going to tell us that our bond rating is going to go up or down?
We're not getting the information.
I think
That's my point. Tell me where this information is coming from.
we've heard from two select people that it's off the table for the moment, okay? So.
Well, where are they getting the information?
And of case.
Well, yeah, look into it.
You guys,
End of case.
I would say just one thing, if we have the actuarial, if we say that we're going to start withdrawing the retiree, they have the number in there, 139. They could run the report on, because right now their report is based on a pay-as-you-go, that we are not dipping in
right.
to it. If I tell them we're going to dip into the retiree cost, then they would start taking that retiree cost column and start minusing it out and then show where we're gonna end up in that. But that's about the only analysis I'm aware of that'll be done. I doubt we're gonna get a definitive on whether or not our bond rating will go up, whether we're.
You're not gonna get it from the
90
actuaries.
Right.
No, I think at this juncture, we're not prepared to discuss this further at this time. Is that a
Don't
fair
we want to get
statement?
the report?
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're gonna follow through.
Right, for
Okay.
next-
All right.
we'll have to
It's not gonna happen until next year then.
Other than OPEB, is there any other business to come before this joint committee?
I think at some point, and maybe not tonight, I think we should talk about how we're going to deploy the rest of river money. Steve had pointed out that there were some that, for example, sewer expansion was a reasonable use for that money. And I just think that at some point, we don't have to do it tonight, but at some point, we should start to have a discussion about what some of the priorities are going to be.
I would just say that the communities were left to make their own decisions as to how those funds were to be used. There were expressions of interest in having the funds used for something that would improve the environment. Those were expressions of interest. That's all. The money has come to the towns unrestricted. It's up to the towns to how they use them. I mean, I have some thoughts about it, but they're hardly in the form of a mandate.
No, I'm not suggesting a mandate. I just feel like there's 10 of us in the room and we should start to talk about these are big.
Well, I don't.
There's a big opportunity to make some.
Well,
I would like to,
that's free cash for next year, is that right?
let's,
Yeah, it is.
the matter is off the table at this juncture. And, is there any other business to come before this joint committee? And I thank you all for your participation. Thank you, everybody. Meeting adjourned.